Today, we can read, write, go, come, buy, sell, ride the front of the bus, drink at the fountain, eat at the lunch counter, walk down the street, look everybody in the eye, and buy all the milk and honey we can carry. This is a far cry from coming to a foreign land in chains and dying a slave, and then having children who are born slaves and then dying slaves. And so we've come an awful long way. The problem is that we've entered a phase of our history for which we were not prepared. And so today we're in the promised land phase of our history, but no one knows it. Those of us who are the descendants of enslaved Africans have inherited a generational legacy that requires every generation to exemplify and to advance the cause of freedom, no matter what the stage of history we're in. The problem is that we've now entered the promised land phase of our history. We've entered a phase of our history that is new. Problem is that we've entered into this phase without proper preparation. There was some vital information that we were supposed to be taught before we moved into this phase of our history that we didn't get. And as a result, there is a phenomenon that should be spread among the inhabitants of the earth, but is not, because the very people whose job it is to exemplify that are too busy pursuing the value systems of others. So at the very time where the inhabitants of the earth stand to be blessed and uplifted by the legacy of the descendants of enslaved Africans, their leaders have encouraged them to pursue the values of others. When you're in the promised land phase of your history, there are certain values that you bring to the promised land that enable you to operate at full capacity, that enable you to really maximize your potential to experience the ultimate version of you. If you think back, the original Hebrews, from which we get the promised land paradigm, the whole purpose for them getting into the promised land was for them to exemplify the ultimate versions of themselves. This is the most powerful, elevating phenomenon ever introduced to man. In order to teach it, there are two principles that have to be understood. First is the law of destiny. The law of destiny. Very important. Identity produces destiny. Identity produces destiny. Because what you accept and acknowledge as the truth about yourself inwardly determines what your life can and will produce outwardly. And if you really want to control your destiny, you actually have to control your identity. Now, the second of the two premier laws governing the human experience is the law of human nature. Very important. Identity selectivity. The thing that separates humans from other species is that we can choose. We can select our own personal identity and thereby govern and control and engineer our destiny. Your destiny is not a matter of chance. It's not a gamble. It's a science. And it has to be understood in order to be controlled. The key, therefore, is to redefine yourself in the present based on your own vision of your victorious future. You cannot be in the promised land without the promise. You cannot be in the promised land phase of your history without the blessing formula, because you'll be destroyed, you'll be swallowed up. The blessing formula is what enables you to navigate your way. It's what enables you to make sense of the world. It's what enables you to anchor yourself and be able to withstand all of the distractions and all of the situations and circumstances that come against the people, both social and political. What is your most glorious self-definition in your vision of your victorious future? What would you say about yourself then? Not now, but then. What would you say about you? What would be your most glorious self-concept then? Your most glorious self-definition, self-assessment, self-truth then? Because whatever the answer to that question is what you need to embrace as your personal identity right now with absolute confidence, and it will produce the vision that it came from. You know why? Because it has no other choice. A seed can only produce the fruit that it comes from. And because that identity didn't come from your past, didn't come from your present, but from your vision of your victorious future, your life will have no other choice but to produce that victorious vision in your future. And that's what we needed to understand. I'm Russell the Magnificent of the Great Kingdom. I am the master teacher of the Blessing Formula. I am the representative of this kingdom. It is my job to make sure that this kingdom's agenda is advanced, and this kingdom's agenda is to make sure that the Blessing Formula, which is the most powerful elevating phenomenon ever introduced to man, is spread unto the inhabitants of the earth.